Hello and welcome. This is Mind Community. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. Thanks for joining us. A very warm welcome to our viewers around the world, those of you who continue to follow us weekly via the World Wide Web. In our last program, we began a presentation of the early history, that is the early history on record of the community of Bridgefield. We ended with a presentation of a number of artifacts unearthed on this location by Paula Hines and her family. Those artifacts point to a civilization, the existence of life here in this community prior to 1841.
In addition to that, you'll find that by the 20th century, early 20th century, and the time of Panama, a lot of persons from Bridgefield went to Panama, and they were able to work and to buy land and to educate their children. So there is that connection between Bridgefield and Panama and the establishment of some early businesses. They were a little freer than the average fellow.
Speaking about businesses, let us look at the shops and their associated activities, all that which contributed to a vibrant social life here in this community.
Presently, we have Bridgefield Mini Mart, but I'm going to go backwards. So before that, we had a family called Milton, and he would run the shop, and that's where you had your cheese cutter, ham cutter, trust me, in the glass case that you would see. And the shop had a unique feature. It has, you know, like the saloon in the day, like the bad man in the cowboy picture, is how you would swing the door. They had a swing door, but no child was allowed in there. The thing was, that was where the older men and women, if they were drinkers, would go in there and have their little shot of rum and stuff.
And they would play games. They played drafts, dominoes, and other games. And after imbibing some liquid refreshment, they would send for the banjo or send for the guitar. And then they would go in, and that would be the area, typically the area where you were not permitted.
And it's only when it became like a young adult that I actually swing the door right in there. See, it was the whole mystery. But it had like a seat that was built to the wall, so they would sit and they could drink and have conversation. But like I said, no child dare enter there.
This is an interesting feature of the village shop. In every edition of Mind Community where the shops were discussed, individuals spoke of this compartmentalization in the shops. It begs the question, was this unique to Barbados, or was it a feature in our neighboring islands? Perhaps you could conduct that research for us.
Before Milton, it was Adderley's, the Adderleys again, family oriented again. And let me let you know that all these shops had a system of credit. They cater to the family. They know that families didn't have money every day, so you would credit, and when your payday came, you would have paid your bill. Before Mr. Adderley was a Miss Cave, and she also would have done the same thing. And I was speaking to one of my cousins who told me she would run down from Hopewell to Bridgefield, get her groceries, and run back up to Hopewell.
And you had people coming from even Whitehall, 40 acres, from surrounding villages to get their groceries and then to head back home.
So these shops service the surrounding districts of Bridgefield, believe it or not. They have people from as far as Bibi Lane that would not come to Main Road, because walking to Bridgefield from Bibi Lane is really long. But we have a connectivity of gullies that you can come through the gully and then smack that you're in Bridgefield.
There was a shortcut, leave Bridgefield through Gallop Gully over into Bibi's Lane. And you can go to St. George, and in those days the gullies were used very, very often. Young boys, some they would find their way to Bridgefield, and they would play games, dominoes and so on, and then they will walk back home. Now, I guess there would have been men who did not fear the night. You come from 40 acres and then you go home whatever time you wanted to. You know, you walk to Bridgefield and you walk back. And you played dominoes, cars. In addition to that, there would have been the strolling minstrels, men who traveled to Bridgefield and played the guitar.
Those activities that made up the social life in this community occurred around the shops. Meanwhile, Paula continues her discussion about a special standing order at one of those shops.
My gran would have a standing order, and I can remember Betty. Betty worked in Atherley shop, a standing order of a ham cutter for me every evening. So when I come home from school, I would like go to the shop, hello, and I would just turn up. Man, and Betty would cut the ham, and she would slice it real nice and put it in my ham cutter. No, I bring home my ham cutter, you know. I eat in my ham cutter in shop. When you bring it home, you gotta share with my brothers. Probably my mommy might want piece, or my sister might want piece, so I can eat my ham cutter in shop. That was me and my granny's secret. But no, it's not a secret, because they all know that granny used to give me a ham cutter. Because I really did love my ham cutter from the shop. And there's nothing, trust me, like a ham cutter from a shop, or a cheese cutter with the little cheese melting, and it looked like the sun going to melt a little bit. Trust me, that was the sweetest ham cutters you would ever eat. So that was just sweet of my gran to do that for me. Granny, love you. I miss you bad, bad, bad. Seriously. So you had other people in Bridgefield now who also had shops, not like the major ones. You had people like Elise Marshall. She lived further down the street, closer to the bridge, through a gap there. She would come up on Saturday evenings, or maybe even for mornings, and sell her pudding and sauce. Then you would get like the patty, pork patties. But let me tell you, these pork patties, they got a big lot of pork, you know. It's like the pork fat in there and fried down nice. But let me tell you, it is grease, but grease, but grease. You know, none of me had no ulcers. We just stir them up. Because when you get it in the paper, all the grease saturate on you hard, and you just eating it. But the taste sweet, 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 you know. You had people like Miss Dalrymple. I never had a bread and two from her. But Cynthia Carter, my friend, swears that she had the sweetest, sweetest bread and twos out. You had John Haynes, who would make a wicked sweet bread, as they would say in Bajan term. And Cynthia reminds me that he was a very nice man. John Haynes, you would go and tell him, John Haynes, you want a piece of sweet bread? And he would slice off a piece and give you. So if you had the money, you just go and tell John Haynes. So in Bridgefield, it was a culture of giving. You had these proprietors who would sell stuff, and yes, they had to make their money, but in it all, they would share.
And sharing is one characteristic that defines a community. There is a special place in our history for the village shopkeepers of yesteryear. Thankfully, their role has been finally documented in a chapter of a book that was published recently. Perhaps you could extend and build on that. Yes, you could build a complete research paper on the fundamental role that these village shops played in Barbadian communities.
They would share. Like I told you, you had migratories that, whether the people were selfish or not, little children would raid them. You think that, like I see the migratories now in Barbados, that these were God migrants, man, we go eat all. We will find a way to get out your fruit. Well, AKA not stealing now, but we will find a way. Anyway, say, man, some people got fruit trees dropping on the ground, but that's not it. Then there's a bar called Mars Bar. You would see an empty lot when you come through my gap, facing directly ahead when you're exiting. That is where Mars Bar was located. She was the last official shop that was there. But before Mars Bar, you've had Elva. You've had Elva running it. Then before Elva, you had a lady called Miss Beard. Before Miss Beard, you had a lady called Miss Allen. So talk to anybody in Bridgefield in the varying age gaps, and they would tell you of these shops. Now, my remembrance of Miss Beard, she had a funny eye, and as a child, I thought it was so unique. So I would go in the shop thinking that this cross-eyed lady was seeing like 2 or 3 of me, and give her, like, do something really smart and think that, yeah, she doesn't know which one it is that give the trouble. Being an adult now, I saw a guy in Chafet, and this thing keep bothering me all through the years. Trust me. I asked this guy, please don't take it wrong, but as a cross-eyed fella, you see 2 people? The man tell me, no, Paul, I see just like you. My love, I didn't blow away. So when I saw in the shop that I was giving this lady trouble and she didn't know who it was and had two of me and she had to figure out which one, man, she didn't know exactly who the person was.
In 2020, Barbados' first poet laureate, Esther Phillips, in speaking about her community in St. George, spoke of a lady who was the guardian. Bridgefield also had its guardians.
And another fact about Bridgefield, Bridgefield had some guardians, some old men, because Bridgefield was known for stick licking. My grandmother was a stick licker, and I had some stick licking people in Bridgefield. So you can't come in Bridgefield and play you want drop lashing somebody. And I think up to this day, nobody can come in Bridgefield and want beat nobody. You go hold some hand and then you're going back home. So you got, if you want to catch somebody from Bridgefield, you got to catch them outside of Bridgefield. Now we have some newbies, and it's the terrace now. I'm not sure that there's au fait with that culture because, sad to say, as we move into the terrace, people tend to forget the village life, and that village life comes with a uniqueness, looking out for one another, being there for one another. So at any given time, you would get a whole group of children. We would just get together, get some food, man, and off to the gully we going, and we can have some fun, cook. There's a gully over there. And so we call it going to the jungle. We would go to the jungle, we would cook. I remember eating Kool-Aid spaghetti because somebody just said it's too yellow. And chop pack of Kool-Aid and we eat it. We would shoot on Sparkies, fight for the Sparky leg, which is nothing sure what Sparky leg is, slimmer than my finger, but we fight for it still. And we would, you see these folks running about now, these would be a thing of the past because we just lined them up. Our boss, we gonna need gully and cook. All right, let's see folk gone missing. But we didn't know about the papa, we were just boiling along. And you're pulling it, came back out your shirt, but you're finding somewhere to, you know, find that pull boy, you gotta get through. So, like, one of our friends, Davidson Carter, sorry for calling him Davidson, but I ain't calling you Rumpel. Then I pick it eat by the setting hang. And they tell me, so we cook him and my nephew, we cut it up, because this was where we would get the sweet potato and yams, and we would take our spices and stuff. So all of us would come together. Somebody would bring something. If you ain't got nothing, you'll come and you go in the gully and cook. Man, take it the setting for, show. You believe that? So we boiling this thing, sweet potato boil away, everything boil away, the chicken still stiff in pot. Mama never sit down with this fire, out the fire, and we start eating. Look, to tell you that it was tough was an understatement. You just bite and swallow, don't bother about chewing, just bite, swallow, and stay safe, doing. We had where we would make our masses out of the wood, and there was a guy who worked at Goddard's Catering. He has since passed. He would bring home these cans. So you would see like these Coca-Cola cans. We never drank them, but we saw the Coca-Cola cans, the Sprite cans. So then my nephew had the ingenious idea of making wheels. So we would have our massive man with these bright Coca-Cola wheels. It was fun, and then we would do like the tots, you know, like tilt man. Put your tot, your hole through your tot. I wonder if I can still do it now. And have your string man to be tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. Then you had your rollerblade. Which was, for those of you who don't know, it was a bicycle wheel, and you had your roller, and you roll it, and just in the corner there, that's the original paling that we used to do. We used to come around the corner, here, bang, just to disturb that woman, she was. And she was, her name was Mrs. Price. Me and her grandson was, yes, Dale. I want the culprits, but you didn't know that, right? So we would just hit it. Sometimes you come home too fast, right? So you're trying to pull back the roller, you bang, then pull your roller. She said, I can't understand what I heard these children. So we find a way and come back home. But the thing was, a gussy, hurling grandchildren could do no wrong. Not because my grandma didn't know. Because of who she was, nobody felt that we were part of the crowd. So you would hear, Miss Early, them wicked grandchildren biting away yours. And then they'd be like, thank God. Thank God for Gussie. She was like, this real, true stalwart that we could hide behind. And sure, but you never got caught. It was beautiful. But not that she didn't dress her lashes in. like she really found out that it was doing wrong. But it was a fun, as you can see the joy and the excitement on my face, reliving it. And there are days now at 51 that when you see my grand's house, I would go in there and just breathe. Because there's such a peace. Remembering my childhood is not traumatic.
With a sense of purpose and a need to share and tell her story, Paula continues with her childhood experiences.
And let me tell you, don't have a fruit tree. I remember we would crawl on our bellies. There's a corner, like when you guys was coming in, there's a corner there that we would ride our little rollers. Should the mini paling, we would entertain Miss Bryce because she'd be quarreling. And while she quarreling, one by one, we doing like ninjas. Flat by your belly, and it always has a cuscus grass. So we gonna crawl through the cuscus grass and down by she go over tree. Look, we met that go over tree snort. So when she see the limbs swayed, and Miss Bryce think that that's monkeys out there. No boy. It's Paula, Timmy, Cynthia, Deverson, a whole bunch of people down there on the trees eating the guavas. They had one that had like a pink meat that is salty, but then they had a white one that they like sugar, and then they had a red one that they like sugar. Right here we had a pear tree that would go over to this property here. Right here was Mr. Moore's mango tree. Of course, Moore didn't want to get mangoes. So the pear tree originated on our lot. So the children would come. We would climb over. Of course, you know, I'm going slower because I was afraid of heights, sure, but. So when I get halfway and I realized I can go no more, it was a free fall to the ground, you rub your belly. That's why I tell people, God love little children, because I probably should have died from internal injuries a long time ago. Then I would climb the mango tree to the trunk. I was the lookout, but I had to give me mangoes because I'm going further. So I just eating there, because no, I go into these, you know, break and branch off. Because if I got let go, I ain't going no further because they got free fall to the ground. That was my way of getting down fast. Because my dad be like, Paula hurt, man, I can see, come on, son. You always want to come and be coming, then you can't get on the tree. Because it will push me up. Then you got probably get down. So just free fall, rub your belly. You feel a little burning, rub it off, shake up, you roll. You're wicked, that's more you're living, so you're good. Never tell your mother, Sherwood. So it was like corned beef thoughts, cut your foot, you get a rock in your pound, squeeze out that old blood, running you're good. Mother never know that you get, never take no shot. So I think right now that my blood probably could cure tetanus. Because, and school was fantastic. Walking from Bridgefield to Holy Innocent was the bomb. And then coming home now, Sherwood, was the bomb too, calling me too. They had cows there, right? And no little children. We got trouble the cow. So I remember one day vividly, Sherwood, I pulled the cow chain. Because they would dare me and I would do it. So here's my nephew and all of our friends. And I pulled the chain. And when I realized they pulled the chain, the cow running. They said, Paula run. I said, no, he died. When I realized this cow running too far. This chain too long. Sherwood quickly found out that I was in error. And I felt. So I ran straight home. I probably would have picked up running from Dean Village, straight home, took off my uniform, went back to sleep. I was so traumatized. And I will kid you not, when I went to Common cow still had a terror for me, you know. Serious. I remember going over Riverstand and the cow just gently butt me in the water. And they easily busted pretend that he did butt me. So the girls in the bus had me, Paula, that cow butt you water. I said, really? But I'm over that fear no Sherwood. I think the love of corned beef has, you know, dulled the ache of being petrified by cows. But it's a beautiful thing to grow up in Bridgefield. So those of you who didn't have that type of village life, sorry, but you can still have it. Find a village and go and do those things. Then you had the social fabric of Bridgefield was one of looking out for each other. Every family knew each other. You would find families. I would go by behind this, the Walcuts. Little children would come over by us. So somebody, you always was taken care of. You would come home from school. I remember sometimes like on moonlight nights we would be out, we would call in the alley, because I will tell you about our gully life, where they call us that we used to go to the gully. So I will tell you who live out here then. But we would go in the alley. We would play puss puss catch a corner. That was sweet. You got your rock. And they hear, puss, puss, catch a corner. You must move when you hear catch a corner. If you don't move, you're out. And that was fun. We would play that for hours and then go home and sleep. So vacation was fun. You got Chinese skip. You got jacks. We playing jacks with rocks. And then, like I told you, we riding our Massies. We got our scooters. So vacation time, and when we come home from school, it was fun cannon. Then we had the people who lived out here, where I said we were in the gully. The early families that lived out here, it was the Browns, which was our family. You had the Grahams that were next door to us. You had Woody, who was right there in the corner, a very quiet man that we used to call Woody. I don't even know if Woody had family, but he was very polite. We would just say, Woody, because you had to speak to everybody in our day. So Woody, good morning, Woody, good night, Woody, good evening. Then you had the Mears that was right beside him. And then coming in now, like I said, you had the Grahams, you had us. Then there was a lady called Doris Reese. She was right there. She was, I don't think she was family to the Grahams, but they adopted her. She was like, they would call she auntie. So that was Doris Reese. Then you had a man we called Bo Peep. Well, of course, we can call him hard, but we call him silently Bo Peep. But he was Mr. Mason. He had a Blue Morris, one of the very few cars we had in Bridgefield. Then coming down, you had Miriam Chase. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. There was Miriam Chase, and then there was a lady, Claudine. Claudine was unique in that Claudine was one of my very first experiences with a lady who would smoke. So you would see Claudine holding her cigarette, pretty, and smoking. But it didn't look being weird. She didn't look out of character smoking her cigarette. It just looked like she was part of the environment. Claudine smoking a cigarette. Yeah. Then you had churches now. I know everybody know I'm a church girl, so you want to know about church in Bridgefield. Church in Bridgefield was attended by every child had to be at church. Whether your mother was a Christian or not, you would get drop off at church. So like we would say, church was your daycare. Your mother telling you, you get bathed and carried to church. If your mother was a church goer, then your mother going to church with you. But trust me, if she was not, you can drop off. And then don't come home before church finish. You know, when church is finished, you can head home. Because if you come home early, your mother carry you back.
Now on to even greater excitement. If that were not enough, let us learn of some of Paula's personal experiences with the church.
So growing up in Bridgefield was fantastic. Going to the mission church, I remember Sherwood going in the bar, right? And I had a monkey that used to keep the water. I poured it out, man, and it was cool and sweet. Like the little old church, and then you have people falling in the power. Sherwood, the power was the thing, you know. So hands would fly out, and they would flutter to me. We'd be like, little children would be like, all right, I hear you. And the flutter would be like, yeah, boy, look. And it was action-packed. Sometimes, even now, I remember, like, if you have like two families coming to the same church, right, and them in Green Sherwood, don't ask them to pray, you know, because they will hear things like, Father, in the name of Jesus, I want to acknowledge you as my personal and indwelling Savior. But I want you know that my sister, Lord, Lord, Lord. And we in the back would be cracking up because Sherwood, honestly, and I'm not knocking church, right? But church then was different from church now. It was like, you would go there, you would hear information. So as a little girl, we go to church. We would sit in the back, we would be like, you feel we can get action today? And you're talking to him, right? He said, I wonder what happened. I remember one time, I will not call the deacon name, may he rest in peace, beautiful man. Apparently, some lady from the church came to his house and was gossiping, but as deacon, no gossiping. So he said, excuse me, sister, I don't want the gossiping. So his wife said, look, tell me what you tell them. Tell me what you tell them. Long story short, she got gently lifted off property. So Sunday morning in church, this was the bashment. You know he's a nigger, right? So the pastor calls on him to pray. The lady who gently got lifted off the property, he started crying, man. You can believe this morning that he passed me out the door. La, Sharon, honest to God. Me and my friends, so honestly, the church was hilarious. But then you had the word of God coming at you, brutal and straight. So even though it was hilarious, some of these older folk who just, even down this old lady who was like, I just want to know that my family, they're trying to kill me this week. And I was like, huh? If it had not been for Jesus, I would have died. And I love really. So it's good thing that they have policemen in there because somebody they could get locked up here with y'all, so where came from. So I enjoyed church, honest to God. Sunday school was a bomb because you would learn your Sunday school story. So it was great. Church has and always been great. We had Bridgefield New Testament Church of God. I remember the earliest pastor was Pastor Morris. That was when I was a wee little baby. So I remember days of going to pray, meeting my mother just crying, blah, and you're sitting down on the ground in front of she, and all the tears dropping down on you. Why my mother there crying, looking at, why mommy there crying? All night prayer service, trust me, you got to be there. You ain't got no choice because your mother going to church, you have to go to church too. So that changed hands and gone into Pastor Springer when Morris retired. You have Pastor Springer taking over that work. Now, they did have a church breakup in Bridgefield. So when Springer now, he moved where it was over on the left by the bus stop, they moved it over to the right so they could build a wall structure. After that wall structure was built, then they wanted to move Springer. Well, you know that the members work hard, man, doing fundraising and all type of stuff. So they really didn't want to move. So that's where the breakup come. And Springer went and he attached himself to the Church of God in Christ. And we have that church in Bridgefield. So we have two major churches in Bridgefield. One is New Testament Church of God and one is the Church of God in Christ. So when Springer left, they had an interim pastor that would hold the members there. And then you had Evelyn Nurse coming. She would have come to Bridgefield and she pastored, and now her son, Felton Nurse, he has continued pastoring. So it's like passing the baton to him and he's not a pastor. So yes, you had little drama and you would understand that they had little drama, but the drama could not have been at such a loggerhead extent. Why? Because you had like a sister who stayed in the New Testament and you had a brother who went to the Church of God in Christ. You have parents who went to Church of God in Christ, but the children stayed with the Sunday school at the New Testament Church of God. So you could understand that you have families who were split, going to two churches in the district, but yet still had to come and live in the same house. So trust me, it meant that you had to resolve the differences quick. And like they would say in Parliament, over the years, we've had people who walk the floor. So you had people who moved from Church of God in Christ and went back to New Testament. You have people that was in longevity in New Testament and said, look, I'm going to the Church of God in Christ. And it is still happening to this day because we still have people walking the floor back and forth. But you know what? They're all serving God and praise Jesus. Somebody's getting saved. So that's it for the churches in Bridgefield.
Amen. That is perhaps the best response. This arguably is what the program My Community is all about, allowing Barbadians to tell the stories of their communities and so enrich the lives of all of us. Thank you, Hal. Thank you, Paula. This has been My Community Bridgefield. Until next week at the same time, be good to yourself and look out for your neighbors. Goodbye.